welcome all here. And for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, this is the monthly astrology from Bali rather than from Soul Food Coffee House in Redmond, Washington. We're here to talk about the month of October 2015 here on the edge of the jungle at Rahasya Manis, which means
Sweet Secret.
Sweet Secrets, a retreat center here about 20 minutes outside of Ubud, Bali. And you will hear sounds of the jungle that are not ours to compete with, just to cooperate with. So we're coming out of a rather tricky period of time astrologically, and we're heading into a time that actually has a bit more breathing room, I think. We are recording this actually 2 days prior to the solar eclipse, which is technically in September, and we're talking about October, but we're still not there yet, and so I do want to say a couple of words about eclipses in general, but we're really looking at October, and from our viewpoint as we get into the material, the eclipses will be history. But eclipses are important astrologically. Their new moons and full moons, lunations, are important, and eclipses are, I think of them as lunations on steroids. They're like a new moon is a beginning, a full moon is a culmination. This cycle has been tracked by native peoples all over the planet for as long as we can figure. And yet, when the full moon or new moon is lined up within about 15 degrees of the nodal axis, which is the place where the moon's orbit around the sun intersects with the moon's orbit around the earth, intersects with the earth's orbit around the sun, where they intersect, they create the north node, south node axis. And when a new moon or full moon occurs near the nodes, either at the full moon, the earth casts its shadow on the moon, darkening it, making it a blood moon or a red moon. And at the new moon, we have a solar eclipse. So we are coming up to a full moon, and this full moon is in the sign of Aries, opposite Libra. We've already had the equinox. We northerners would call this the autumnal equinox. However, since we're 8 degrees south of the equator here, this is actually the vernal or spring equinox here, because equinoxes depend upon which side of the earth, the north or south, is tilted toward or away from the sun. Eclipses are time shifts. Eclipses kind of rattle the energy. I think of eclipses as a polarization. It takes the moon 2 weeks to grow full. It's like, imagine you're in a room that it's completely dark, and over the course of 2 weeks it gets gradually lighter. And now the full moon at night is full, the room is light, but someone grabs a hold of that light switch, and in the matter of an hour, turns it completely dark and turns it completely light again. And then it goes on for the rest of its cycle. At a solar eclipse, it's taken 2 weeks for the moon to become dark, and then at the dark of the moon, all of a sudden someone rattles the light switch, flashing the lights on and off. Anyone here ever been at a total solar eclipse? I met Evelyn, the owner of this facility, at a total solar eclipse in Plymouth, England in 1999. And it's weird because it's midday and it gets dark. And we were on the edge of Plymouth, and the city lights all automatically came on because it was like the middle of the night dark, and the birds went crazy. The ancients freaked when this happened. And they learned pretty quickly, actually, I say pretty quickly from our point of view, how to track these cycles and even predict them. But the fact is that they were frightening. They were scary. It's like being in an earthquake. We think the ground is solid, and all of a sudden it's not. And that is frightening because we learn to rely on certain things. I'm having an eclipse of Rick, I realize. It's a Rick-clipse. So to the ancients, any changes in the rhythms were kind of like difficult to handle. I even think that retrogrades to the ancients were more frightening because they didn't understand how the universe was all glued together, how the rhythms actually worked mechanically, and even a planet just going backwards, and it looked like it did it arbitrarily. I mean, again, they figured out these rhythms and they were able to predict them, but we rely on an external universe of regularity. We rely, people say, do you really think you can predict the future? And I say, well, did you ever schedule a meeting for the day after tomorrow? I mean, we rely on the calendar to be the calendar. And so eclipses kind of screw with that for us. And I think it puts us through spaces. Now, I don't want to dwell on the eclipses because we're really, in October, we're out of eclipse season. Eclipses typically come in pairs, a new moon eclipse followed by a full moon or vice versa. Sometimes there's a third in the sequence. But twice a year we enter an eclipse season, and during eclipse season things can get crazy, things can get strange. The energy is turned upside down, inside out, and backwards. Astrologically it's a bit Uranian, I think. There's a suddenness to eclipse energy. But here's the deal. Eclipses can affect us globally, socially, politically, economically. They can be the election week, a couple of weeks before, of a black horse candidate in the UK. It can be the resignation of Boehner in the United States yesterday. That's ecliptical. Leaders fall from power during the changing energies of eclipses. But eclipses set up energy that actually can create change in our life for months before the eclipse or months after the eclipse. And that's the crazy thing about eclipses, is that there's a bit of time distortion. So knowing where early Aries is in your chart is where this eclipse sets the energy up in your chart, in your life for the days, weeks, months ahead. So let's move on from eclipses and talk about the month of October and some of the major things that are going on. And bear with me here just a second, because when I normally do these, I print out before Soul Food Astrology Night, I print out a sheet, and you know, who has paper in Bali? I know that. Could have, but no, I'm good. I have it on my iPad, but I had to get it. So, what we're going to do is we're going to touch on some of the major rhythms of the month of October, some of the major events astrologically. We're going to look at the upcoming lunations. We're going to look at the planets that change signs this month. We're going to look at the upcoming new moon and full moon in October. Then we're going to take a 10 or 15 minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to take a more global perspective on what the hell's going on, you know, in these days. Why is this whole period of time, the last several years now, and actually the second the second part of this decade, the 2015, 16, 17, why is this such a rock and roll period of time, and the resonance between now and the 1960s? So we start this month off with, and I don't know how well you can see that, but I will do my best to explain. I asked the management to put the shades down all the way around, but there are none, nor will there be, nor should there be. So we're looking at the chart here. I'm going to get rid of the aspect lines to the moon so it's not as complicated looking here, and we're going aspect points, and we're going no moon. All right. What we have, for those of you who are not totally astrologically oriented, is we have, I'm going to make the videographers crazy here. We have the basic chart that we use, and this is the horizon. And we have above the horizon, it's midday, the sun is in the sign of Libra, This is for October, this is for September 28th. We'll back it up in a moment. The sun is opposite the moon. This is on the day of the eclipse. But we have all the planets mapped around the edge here. And I want to just change this so we get rid of the horizon. And bear with me here 1 second. And we're going to go to doom, to doom. And we're going to make this be, for today is the 26th. But we're actually going to move this forward to the 1st. And on October 1st, we can see here that the sun is at 8 degrees of Libra. We can see here that there's a little bunch of planets down here that we're going to be talking about. We have Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. And Jupiter spends 1 year in each sign. I believe this is the basis of Chinese astrology, where depending upon what year you were born, that's your sign. It's not a one-to-one correspondence, but Jupiter is the planet of expansion. Jupiter is the social planet. It's the first planet outside of the personal planets. And so in a way, Jupiter is our enlarged senses. It's our social perspective. And in China, it's interesting that a lot of their metaphysics is about orientation of the self to the larger sphere, to the social system. And so Chinese astrology looks at this 12-year cycle of Jupiter. Even though they use a different zodiac and they measure it differently, it's still a rhythm of Jupiter based upon 12 years. It takes Jupiter 12 years to go through all the signs of the zodiac. And last month, Jupiter moved from Leo, where it had been for an entire year. Jupiter in Leo, we expanded our lives through display, through performance, through show and tell. And now, as Jupiter has moved into Virgo and will be in Virgo for a year, we expand, we grow, we learn Jupiter stuff through Virgoan areas of life. Virgo is narrowing. Virgo is detail. Virgo is effective and efficient. It's routine. So it's kind of oxymoronic. We were talking at the retreat this morning about how Jupiter is a very large planet in a very small, very confining place. But in a way, the message for the year ahead with Jupiter in Virgo is what can we learn and how can we expand our awareness, how can we grow by narrowing our focus and doing specific things. So it's kind of a bit of a paradox, Jupiter in Virgo in general, but the idea in Virgo is that we focus. We're coming from the time of year of Virgo, where the energy is focused, into the time of year when the sun is in Libra. The sun is in Libra all the way through October 23rd, when it moves into Scorpio, and we'll be talking about this Libra to Scorpio energy, because that's the energy of this time of year. And as long as we are in Bali, I should just say parenthetically, I believe that as you get closer to the equator, that there is less focus on what we in extreme latitudes use as astrology. And it's because whether you're in the extreme north or extreme south, the difference between the seasons and the energy of the seasons, things beginning at the spring and then coming to fruition by Virgo and then balancing in Libra and then pulling an indrawing, pulling in Scorpio, where things go hidden until the following spring when the cycle starts all over again. Well, on the equator, the sun rises every day at 6 a.m. and sets every day at 6 p.m. There is virtually no difference. I mean, there's subtle differences, but it's not quite the same. And so I am just acknowledging the fact that what we do, what we Westerners do, and I'm including you Aussies and Kiwis in we Westerners, what we do as astrologers is really from a particular point of view, and it may not be as useful or valid for some peoples. So, we have the sun having moved into Libra on the equinox, equal night. It's the time when there's 24 hours in a day, every day, 12 hours of light, 12 hours of dark all over the planet. Here on the equator, There's 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark virtually every day. Jupiter moved into Virgo, and then just last week, Mars moved into Virgo. Mars spends about 8 weeks, 7-8 weeks in a sign. So we have Mars now in Virgo through the entire month of October. And Mars in Virgo, again, Mars is physical energy. It's assertion. Mars is red. It's the angry red planet. It's adrenaline in the blood. Mars is how we go forward. Well, Mars likes to go forward, but in Virgo, how does it go forward? Carefully, efficiently, with attention to the detail. Mars in Virgo can be very powerful, but it's not natural, because Mars is not a timid energy, and yet in Virgo, it has to be careful at every move it makes. It doesn't want to do too much at any point in time. But we have a weird twist here, and that is that Mars is following Jupiter, and Mars moves faster than Jupiter, and Mars will catch up and align with Jupiter on October 17th. We'll see this here in a moment when I animate the chart. But all these planets are moving at different speeds. Jupiter's taking 1 year to go from here to here. Meanwhile, Mars is taking 7 weeks to go from here to here. And behind it, Venus, which has been retrograde, Venus tipped into Virgo, back retrograded over this late summer into Leo. Now Venus is direct again, but she's still in Leo, and Venus moves into Virgo on October 8th. And can you see this little party developing here? This is a lot of what October is about. It's about Venus, the planet of love, attraction, and desire. What is Venus like? Venus likes in Virgo. Come on, class. What is Venus like in Virgo? Likes to be clean.
Organized.
Likes to be organized. Likes to be efficient. Likes things just right. I have a friend who says that for a Virgo, perfect is almost good enough. You see, because Virgo energy, and we talked about this earlier in the week, the word Virgo means virgin. But the word virgin in the Greek did not mean what it means to us prissy moderners. It had nothing to do with whether a woman had sex or not, or whether a person had sex or not. In classical Greek society, a virgin was a woman who was not property, because women were property. And yes, a case could be made that in our advanced culture, women are still considered property to some extent. Obviously not here, but I mean, when I say here, I mean in this group of enlightened beings. But the point is that in Greek society, a woman was owned by a man, except if that woman was a prostitute or a temple priestess. Then she was not property. And you see, if a woman is property, the woman has no center, no right to make judgment. Therefore, a woman could not refuse a man because she was property. It was illegal, in effect. But if a woman was a virgin, and to our modern ears it doesn't sound right that prostitutes were virgins and temple priestesses were virgins. We think of temple priestesses as virgins, the Vestal virgins, as never having had sex. And there were some priestesses who were not sexual. But there was the magical healing rituals, the Eleusinian fields, but you see, no one could go to a priestess and demand the Eleusinian rites. They had to be offered. And herein lies the key to understanding what this planetary party in Virgo is. It's about ownership of self and defining of boundaries in a way that determines what's okay and what's not okay. Virgo's the critic. The critic says, that's good, that's not good, that sucks, that's bad. That movie was terrible, because the critic is being critical is a Virgo function. It's the binary function of the universe. Yes, no, 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 yes, yes, no. It's the maiden separating off the wheat, that's yes, from the chaff, that's no. That's what the binary function of Virgo is. And its planet, being Mercury, is Mercury as the intellect of what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what's useful, what's not useful. We talked about earlier in the week here about how Mercury, when it's associated with Gemini, is not virginal and not self-defining at all. It's an information slut. Mercury in Gemini, all information is good. Give me more. Give me information. It doesn't matter whether it's true, doesn't matter whether it's useful, it's data. And to a Virgo, Gemini is noisy. To a Gemini, Virgo is basically not getting the whole picture because they're narrowly looking at only certain information. So, we have this little party here of Venus coming into Virgo. I always think of Venus and Virgo as, what's the song from Fiddler on the Roof? Matchmaker, matchmaker. I always think of Venus as list maker, make me a list. It's the, I want a guy, I want a girl who, that sounded like short skirt and long jacket. I want a girl. Okay, no, I want a guy who has dark hair, who's smart, who's independent. I want a woman who is spiritual, who is kind, who is, you fill in whatever you want to fill in. But the Virgo has this list. And then when they meet people, it's like, okay, check, yes, no, that's a deal breaker. No thanks, next. And there's that sense of Virgo going through life in that manner, of that binary function of that's okay, that's not okay, that's not okay. So Venus is moving into Virgo, but Venus is also moving closer and closer to Mars. Venus and Mars are the cosmic consorts, or they're the cosmic lovers. Venus was Mars's consort. And so we have Venus and Mars, who actually have, normally Venus catches up with Mars every other year. But we had, because of the Venus retrograde, we had Venus catching up with Mars and Jupiter early summer, then retrograding back over it, and now Venus is going direct again, and although she's not moving really fast direct yet, she's still building speed, she will catch up with Mars, Mars will catch up with Jupiter, and Venus will catch up with the both of them. Building in Virgo, and oddly enough, the Sun, who lights up the whole show, has said, I'm done with Virgo this year. You guys are cleaning up after me. A good Virgo thing, cleaning up, The Sun is off on into Libra, and by the time all this action is really cooking, the Sun will be even readying to go into Scorpio. So let me do some animation here, talk more about the energies. We have a couple of other interesting things that are cooking here, and I know it's hard to see these, but we have. It's my Gemini line. How can you be two places at once when you're nowhere at all? I want to be on the computer and here. Actually, maybe I could get someone to sit here and forward, and it's really easy. We're just gonna, this goes backwards a day at a time. This goes forward a day at a time. Magic. All right, so we are here on September 30th. Let's go forward. Okay, now let's go forward again. Now let's hold it for a second. I just want to, we're on the, let's go forward to the 6th, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. All right, now we're on the 6th. Now, what we have on the 6th is Mars is just coming into an opposition with Neptune. Go one more here.
That's the 6th.
All right, okay. Okay, so now it's 7 degrees to 7 degrees. On the 6th is a bit of an action day. On the 6th, that's next Tuesday. I say next Tuesday for those of you who are watching this sometime in the future. It was last Tuesday, or the Tuesday before. How does that work? Okay, so we have, on the 6th, we have Mars opposite Neptune. Mars has moved into Virgo, getting very narrow, very focused, great intent. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to get there. This is what's going to happen. Laser. It's laser intensity and focus. Neptune, on the other hand, is total dispersion. Neptune is imagination, it's illusion, it's the god of, or goddess, I think it's a feminine energy, it's the god or goddess of the seas. And of course here we mean not only the big ocean out there, we're at Bali, and out there, and out there, and out there, and out there. It's not only that big ocean, it's also the seas of consciousness. It's the same waters that flow through all of us. Neptune in Pisces is we are all one. The illusion of ego is an illusion of ego. It's back to that Trungpa Chogyam Rinpoche line, enlightenment is the ego's greatest disappointment. You know, Mars has an agenda. Mars is ego. Mars is, I'm going to build this city. Rock and roll. I'm going to build this city. I'm gonna get this done. I'm gonna make this house. I'm gonna fix this toilet. Whatever it is, Mars has an agenda. You know, you want something done, find a functional Mars. Get it done. May not be any empathy, may not be any spirit, may not be any heart connection, but Mars gets shit done. Mars has an agenda and has a direction until it meets Neptune that goes, Mars goes, what was I doing? Where was I going? Neptune is the clouds of illusion coming in. Neptune is the mist. When it gets just right and that mist comes in and you can't see anything, you think there's a jungle out there, but all of a sudden it's invisible. You hear sounds, and when there's such a thick mist, Mars can't go at 60 miles an hour or even at 10 kilometers an hour, looking for potholes around bendy roads here in Bali. If it's really fogged in, Mars has no direction. It has to wait it out. And in fact, when Neptune comes in, the fog comes in because we can't see anything. We make shit up, which is imagination. And it's non-physical, it's spiritual. Neptune's job, we talked about this earlier in the week on the retreat. Neptune's job is to dissolve the hard edges of Saturn. Neptune's job is to take boundaries and to dissipate them. So when Mars, I have direction, I'm going somewhere, runs into an opposition with Neptune, we may feel like we've lost steam. It may be great if we're hanging out on vacation and counting waves, but it may not be so good if we're trying to get something done because there's nothing in our way, but we just can't figure out why we're not making any progress. So between now and the first week of October, with Mars being in Virgo already and moving closer and closer to that opposition, this is part of the background energy. These transits don't happen on a day. The energy builds and we move into the energy. So on the 6th, which is a relatively big day because on one hand we have Mars opposing Neptune. On the other hand, we also have the Sun, which moves about a degree a day because the Sun goes around from Earth's point of view once a year, 360 degrees, 365 days, about a degree a day. So we have on the 6th, the Sun at 13 Libra makes a 90-degree angle, a square with Pluto. Pluto is power intensity. When the Sun squares Pluto, we often find ourselves in some sort of power struggle. There's something going on that's deeper than what's on the surface, and this is the same day that we don't know where we're going. This is going to be an interesting day or two around the 6th. On top of that, we also have Mercury, which is slowing down. Mercury has been retrograde since September 17th. Mercury turns retrograde 3 times a year for about 3 weeks at a time. It's not negative unless we think that we're pushing ourselves into new territory. Then it kind of can trip us up. Mercury, when it's retrograde, like any retrograde planet, is closer to Earth, so the energy is more intense. We can fool ourselves into thinking we need to do something right now. We can miss an appointment. We can mishear, misspeak. We can sign a contract before we read it. It's not a bad time to sign contracts, although you read that all over the internet. Astrologers say, don't do this when Mercury is retrograde. Well, it's retrograde for a total of 2.5 months a year. That's a lot of time not to do shit. What it really means is that if you do something when Mercury is retrograde, take the time to make sure that what you're doing is really what you think you're doing. So Mercury has been going retrograde. It turns direct on October 9th. But what that means is the few days before it turns direct, because the planets are like pendulums from one point of view. And in order to change direction, go direct, retrograde, direct, retrograde, a pendulum moves fastest during the middle part of the cycle. And as it gets to either extreme, it slows down. And it actually stops. It spends about 2.5 years in each sign, and it sets a background note. Saturn has been in Scorpio for 2.5 years. It moved into Sagittarius. It moved into Sagittarius on Christmas Eve, 2014. It turned retrograde and moved back into Scorpio in June. So from mid-June until last week, from mid-June until last week, we've been getting this remedial course on emotions, feelings, intensity, things that have not yet been fully processed. We've been back perhaps in some old cycles. Now, Saturn's moving direct again. Saturn is now in Sagittarius, where it will stay until December of 2017. Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn is the anchor. It's the glue to reality. Saturn is the tester. Saturn is what makes things real. It's the material 90-degree world. Saturn is Satan. It's the three-dimensional world. It's the body. We talked this week about how Satan is Saturn from a Judeo-Christian standpoint. And how when one is cured of that illness, that body is not something that is to be punished for. Pursuit of it. Body is, in William Blake's words, body is merely that portion of soul which we can perceive through our 5 senses, which are the chief inlets of soul in this age, as Blake wrote. Now, Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn is hard work. It's the taskmaster. Sagittarius says, top of mountain, far away. That's where I want to go. Different than Capricorn, who says, top of mountain, far away. I'm going to make a plan and get to the top of that mountain. You see the difference? Capricorn imagines going on a safari to, Kenya, or to go to Bali. And it doesn't really care if it ever gets there. It wants to be on the adventure that goes there. So Saturn in Sagittarius is like setting a goal that is in integrity with ourselves. It doesn't matter what we accomplish. It's the journey, it's the adventure in Sagittarius that matters. So we have Saturn, just a couple weeks ago, moved into Sagittarius, where he will be for the next 2 years. Every planet that moves into Virgo one at a time is going to form a 90-degree square with Saturn. This is uncomfortable. Venus hits the square to Saturn. Venus says, yummy, love, nice, sweet. Saturn says, no. Saturn is the planet that restricts us, restrains us. It makes us do the work. Saturn doesn't stop us from feeling good. It just makes us work for it. Saturn says, I have no problem with ecstasy. Just do the right things along the way so that when you get there, it lasts. So it's not just some fleeting moment of hello, goodbye. That's what Saturn's job is to sustain the reward or to punish us if we haven't been doing the work. So, we have Venus squaring Saturn on October 10th. And this first week of October, it was actually really into the second week of October, there's some pretty intense energy going on because we're also getting a very deep and powerful glimpse of the future, and from low in the body, we're getting energy to work with that and to make it happen. And this is coming from Jupiter moving now through Virgo. 12, give me another day. 13 degrees Virgo, 13 degrees Capricorn, Earth Virgo, Earth Capricorn, Jupiter expansion, opportunity, growth, education, those things that we talked about before. We're getting them from being efficient, from being detailed, but now we're getting support from Pluto. We're getting support from the bad boy himself, from Hades, from the hell realms. From the hell realms, of course. I quoted this earlier this week also when we talked about Pluto. When I talk about the hell realms, I'm talking about William Blake saying that hell is a place so beautiful it would torment an angel to insanity. This is where magic happens. This is where transformation happens. This is where metamorphosis happens. It's the unconscious. It's the deep. It's the dark. Pluto is Darth Vader. It's the cosmic bad boy. It's intense, deep, dark, transformative, and Jupiter uplifting, magnanimous, expansive, meeting up with Jupiter and getting help. We can make anything happen here. However, this is a very slow-moving, long-lasting aspect, and because of that direct, retrograde, direct, this moves out of phase, and then Jupiter goes retrograde, and next mid-March, Jupiter is back into this trine with Pluto, next mid-March. It then backs up, turns direct for the third and final time, forms that trine again next end of June. So here's how we use astrology. We think of what's going on in our lives now, and now, between now and October, that October 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, even though the 11th is the exact date. What is it, the long-term goals that we want to set? What are we going for? And what can we do now to set those things in motion, knowing that over the next weeks, the energy will seem to have passed? But that's an illusion. The energy hasn't passed. We'll be revisiting it again in mid-March and the end of June. And so this builds on itself and builds on itself. And often these slower moving planetary rhythms work like that, whether we're consciously aware of them or not. So this is a big period of time through the 11th. Also on the 11th, we got crazy wild man Uranus. Uranus, who does everything different, futuristic. Think of the movie Back to the Future, the professor. For those of you who were in the retreat, when we were talking about this morning the time, the retrocausality, how the future can affect the past, and how the physicist Jack Sarfati actually used the mind experiment of the God phone. You know, have yourself in the future, call yourself up on the phone and do a dialogue. And this is actually how the future can impact, how we can facilitate the future leaking back into the present moment. Well, Back to the Future, the scientist, the professor, yes, he was written as a caricature of Jack Sarfati. So that's who that character is, just for those, because we talked about him earlier today. Okay, so the sun on the same day, on October 11th, the sun in Libra is exactly opposite Uranus. You know, the sun basically lines up with and is opposite all the slow-moving planets once a year. Because these planets, Uranus is in Aries for 7 years. It's moving very slowly. 84 years around. We'll talk more about that after the break. So, the sun, once a year, will be opposite Uranus, but it'll be a different time, few days difference every year. This year, the sun opposition to Uranus is on October 11th, the same day that Jupiter is trining Pluto, and Uranus is the planet of different. It's lightning striking, it's awareness, it's awakening. And again, I come back to, if there's one day this month that stands out as a significant day, and when I say day, I really mean a couple days before that day and a day or so afterwards, it's that October 11th. And on top of that, by the 12th, let's come in one more day, and if we advance this an hour, I'm going to take control here for a second, and I'm going to change that day to an hour, and I'm going to advance that until the sun and the moon. That's close enough. We'll go back to the day now so that you can keep it. So, on October 12th at 8:05 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, which actually means here in Bali, it's October 13th at 8:05 a.m. Bali local time? What time are we? What's the name of this time zone? Does anyone know? Doesn't matter. It's this time zone. Time zones are so weird when you travel a lot. It's like, really? All right. So, the new moon is on October 12th or 13th, depending upon where on the planet you are. But once a month, our calendar is astrological, once a month, the moon catches up with the sun, and once a month, 14 days later, a fortnight later, the moon will be over here, but the sun will have moved some 14 degrees, because the sun moves from Earth's point of view about a degree a day. We'll get to the full moon in a minute, but we could just roughly take 19 plus 20, 19 plus 12, and that's, whoop, that's 31. Is that next month? No, we get it on the 27th, actually. Oh, but it's in the next sign. We'll get there. Sometimes I look at this and I think I know what I'm thinking, but I stepped into the twilight zone. Okay, so back to here and now, wherever that is. You know, there's a branch of astrology that is called horary astrology, which has to do with divining. It's not the astrology that we know, that we have been using here. That's more of a psycho-spiritual developmental astrology, is how I might call it. Horary astrology is like you ask a question. Where are my keys? Should I get married on Thursday? I mean, you ask specific questions. And the astrologer draws up a chart for the moment the question is asked, and answers the question based upon that moment. And that moment is always a moment in space. So you have a place where you've done a chart and you draw it up. I don't do that astrology, but I know good astrologers who do. So if you're on the Concorde, well, they don't have that anymore. If you're on South China Airlines over the Pacific somewhere, moving at 575 miles an hour, and you're in some indeterminate time zone, and someone says next to you, oh, you're an astrologer, and here's the question, what time is it? And where are you? It's not the same world we used to be in, where, you know, in Bali, when you meet someone, you know, they basically say, you know, where are you from? Where are you going? They don't want to know anything else. You know, that's what most locals want to know, because they're so spatially, tribally oriented, is where are you from and where are you going? And for those of you who are just here for the first time, you may get that if you have interactions with locals. You know, where are you from? Where are you going? So, the new moon, here and now, depending upon where here is and where now is, depending upon where you are, on October 12th or 13th, is a very powerful new moon. It's not an eclipse, like the last new moon was, but it's very powerful because it is...
I just went to the 13th.
Yeah, thank you. It's like something... Now, it's like, okay, so if you're supposed to be here now, is that like now or then, when I said it? I get so confused. Now, I'm an Aries. Now, be here now. Ram Dass, incidentally, much old, well, quite a bit older than I am, but born April 6th like I am, and it's certainly an Aries statement, whether one can be or not, to be here now. And although the Tibetan teaching certainly will have us understand that that is easy to say and much tougher to do, you know, to be in that place where there's no anticipation of the future and no remembrance of the past. It's not an easy place to maintain, but it sounds good. So be here now. Be here now. Where else can you be? When else can you be? All right. It's like people say, oh, just be yourself, as opposed to, you know, even if we're acting like someone else, we're so stupid sometimes. We're still being ourselves. All right. So that's different, by the way, than be authentic. That's a different thing. Anyhow, the significance of this new moon in Libra, here and now, wherever that is or was, is that this new moon is within a degree opposite Uranus. Remember I talked about how a couple days ago on the 11th, the sun opposed Uranus, and now on the 12th or 13th, the moon catches up. Back up one day. So there's the exact sun opposite Uranus. Now we have the new moon sweeping into it. Power. And we have this picking up on the Uranian energy. This new moon, even though Libra likes balance, likes harmony, likes to make things, you know, it's John Lennon, the Libra, imagine, you know, it's that, you know, harmony and sweetness and peacefulness. This is all Libra energy. But it's opposite Uranus, who's throwing lightning bolts wherever there's tension. Uranus, it's the sudden release of Kundalini. It's the that's how Uranus works. It's explosive in the moment, releasing tension. So this new moon is a very powerful new moon, and one that we can use our intention, because that's what new moons are about. They're planting the seeds of intention. And whether you do it at the moment of the new moon, the universe is very sloppy and forgiving when it comes to timing. You know, it's that whole, you know, rhythms, as long as they're close to another rhythm, synchronize. Energy, the universe likes to save energy by synchronizing rhythms. So if you're doing a new moon ritual, I know people who will time it to the moment the new moon is new. The universe doesn't care if you do it a half an hour sooner or an hour later. And in fact, there are many astrologers who believe that real new moon rituals done at the new moon are wasted, because there's nothing to grab onto yet, and that the real action of the new moon is the following day or two, because that's when things begin to manifest, and that's the wave you want to catch building. That's the surf you want to get on your board and ride for the next 2 weeks until it's full and the energy culminates. But this is a good one to ride, and because Uranus is involved, use the word, when you're creating your intentions, use the word independence, use the word freedom, use the word breaking out of, because the ingenious revolutionary expression of rebellious Uranus combined with that new moon is a very powerful one. Let's move ahead a couple days to the 15th. Now, let's back up just a little bit here. Okay, so remember I said that we had Mars catching up with Jupiter and then Venus catching up with both Mars and Jupiter. So one more day now, and one more day, one more day. All right, back a day. You see here how Mars has caught up and passed Jupiter, and that Mars-Jupiter conjunction actually is on the 17th of October, but between the 16th and 17th, Mars goes from one side of Jupiter, again a day ahead, and then Mars. So now when Mars, the planet of feisty, fiery, energy, physicality, just do it, when Mars lines up with Jupiter, the planet of bigger, better, more, expansive, what's going to happen? We can get a lot of stuff done, but we can also burn ourselves out by doing too much. We can overdo. We can overcommit. We can take on more than perhaps we can deliver on. So this Mars conjunct Jupiter is a very uplifting and powerful energy, and yet there's also an inherent danger of not knowing how much is enough. That is on the 16th, 17th. Now, remember earlier we were talking about how Jupiter, in a very slow-moving aspect, is harmonizing or trining to Pluto. That was the longer-term rhythm. Back this up a few days. Okay. So, as Mars comes into its conjunction with Jupiter, Mars is also going to trine Pluto. Mars, physical, energetic, direction. Pluto, deep, power. The coming up from the dark, and Mars and Pluto can be incredibly powerful transformation. But it's a trine, it's a harmonious energy, and it picks up on this Jupiter. So again, this period of time, this 16th, 17th, is amazing for the potential of the energy that we have to do what we want to do in the outer world. However, and there's always a however, we have on the 16th, Venus exactly opposite Neptune. Remember we had Mars opposite Neptune a couple weeks or a week or prior? Mars opposite Neptune was we had direction and we got lost. Well, Venus and Neptune is a different story because Venus is attraction and beauty and Neptune is imagination. So what might happen here? We might find ourselves projecting a romantic illusion, or we may just be very romantic. But there's this whole idea of beauty being projected. This is magnificent for a relationship dance, as long as we understand the difference between Saturn and Neptune, meaning the difference between reality and imagination. And whenever I talk about Neptune, we've talked about this during the week, I always quote my friend Caroline Casey, who says that imagination lays the tracks for the reality train to follow. So we use the Venus opposition Neptune to dream. But we're also having Mars and Pluto and the power and the Jupiter in here building. This is a tremendous period of time. I mean, this period from the new moon all the way through this trine, through the middle of October, through the 17th, is very, very powerful. And as we move on, let's move this on again a little bit, because now Mars is separating from Jupiter. The distance there will go ahead, give me another one. That'll continue to grow. Venus, on the other hand, is getting closer to Jupiter, but on the way, Venus is also going to make that same trine to Pluto that the other planets in Virgo, Jupiter and Mars, made. And that exact trine from Venus to Pluto is on the 23rd. Let's hit that up to the 23rd. And so here we have Venus to Pluto, and here we have a sense of being able to go deep. I'm killing the sound here just a little bit because we have some feedback. So we have the ability to go deep. Venus, Pluto is anything but casual. We're talking here, transformative values. We're talking, intense rites of transformation that certainly can be sexual. This is Venus, and yet it's in Virgo. It's not. This is like with a purpose, but this is very powerful. While Venus is trining Pluto, and on that same day we have back up one day. We have the Sun moving from easygoing, balanced, harmonious Libra into Scorpio. All right. So in the northern hemisphere, in Libra, there's a balance of energies. In fact, in Virgo, you get that crispiness of vegetation we harvest. We harvest the wheat in Virgo. In Libra, we get those days where Indian summer, it's perfect. It's like balanced. It's neither summer nor autumn. The colors are magnificent. I grew up in New England, and the sugar maples come alive. The colors are crazy. It's like living inside of a box of tricks without the sugar. Oh no, but the sugar maple, so it is sugar. So much for that theory. But there's something about Libra where everything is hung in the balance. The Sun moves into Scorpio, and the balance goes. If Jeff were here, he would remind us that Scorpio, in most northern and most extreme climb civilizations, Scorpio was the time of year when the harvest was done and the wealth, the joint wealth of the family or the community was assessed. And it was decided who would live and who would die. Who are we going to feed? Who are we going to let go? I mean, these were hard decisions. This is Scorpio. Cut the waste. This is Scorpio. It's about death and rebirth. Scorpio is the time of year when all of a sudden those beautiful, brightly colored leaves on the trees are all dried up and falling to the ground. They're dead. They're no longer pretty. They're gone. They're done for the year. But something magic happens in Scorpio because although the energy pulls in, it's the first sign of the energy. Libra, it's in balance. Scorpio, the energy is drawing in. And as it draws in, it cuts off. And as it does, something magical happens to the energy that draws in. Because from the time of Scorpio, from Scorpio to Sagittarius to Capricorn, to Aquarius to Pisces. Something in there happens so that when the sun hits Aries, boom, there's a whole new cycle of life that begins again. So the magic occurs beginning in Scorpio. It's the hidden realm. It's the unknown, unknowable realm. It's related to the physical energy of Mars, but to the deep and intense and unknowable energy of Pluto. Modern astrology puts Pluto in relationship to Scorpio. The ancients didn't have Pluto, they used Mars. And as we talked about earlier in the week, we moderners have lost a little bit of the passion and the wetness of Mars because we gave Scorpio to Pluto and we took that part of Mars away and said, you're stuck in Aries where all you want to do is do. You know, but Mars also has a watery, emotional component to it. Most signs have holidays that we celebrate that are left over from the feminine pagan earth religions, and the predominant holiday of Scorpio is the Dia del Muerte, the Day of the Dead, All Hallows Eve, Halloween. What happens on Halloween? This is one of the fixed quarters. You know, there are 4 points in the year where in the middle of the fixed signs, in the middle of Taurus, Beltane, May 2nd, May Day, in the middle of summer, in the middle of autumn, in the middle of winter, and in the middle of autumn on the last day of October or first day or two of November, we know that the veil is thin. We celebrate Halloween. We celebrate it with, you know, kids' games, and, you know, we whitewash everything. The idea of costumes and whatever. The fact of the matter is the veil is thin. Stuff comes through from the other side. Okay, here in Bali, they don't need Halloween. The veil is always thin. There are spirits always at play. But in the northern climes, we block that out, and that time of year, it comes through. No. A place I wanted to go. Someone, when we stop taping, someone say, go to that place that you wouldn't go on tape. I'll go. Eat your hearts out. All right, so this is see, we've had these planets one at a time doing this sweet dance with Pluto, the Lord of Darkness, Darth Vader, Mick Jagger, James Dean. I don't know who's your dark, you know, character. I'm sure there are other good ones that I'm not thinking of. Anyone think of a good Plutonic character? Okay. But each of these planets, as they move through Virgo, harmonize with Pluto, and now we have the Sun going into Scorpio, where it will be for a full month. And that is on the 23rd, on the day that Venus is trine Pluto. This is pretty sweet. We do have a little bit of a disruption here, and a little bit, it's a good news, bad news kind of a thing. And by the way, when I couldn't figure that out before, if we go one more day, that's when Venus catches up with Jupiter, and Venus will yet catch up with Mars. But let's back this all the way up. Okay, that's good enough. So we have, and now we're going to play this forward again, and we're going to watch, there's Mars going over Jupiter, there's Venus, keep going, over Jupiter, keep going, and stop. And there's Venus going over Jupiter, and that's not until November, and under contract I'm not allowed to talk about November, October, so kidding, but come back. Moan back. So we're coming back to about the 25th is good, that's good. So on the 24th, back one day more, we have Mars. You see this green line here? All these lines are aspects, they're sacred geometry, they're harmonics of the musical tones that are created when the planets work with each other. And back it up one more day. We're back, okay, perfect. Mars, 17 degrees. Now, one more. Forward again, sorry. 18 degrees. Uranus was 18, now 17. Uranus is going backwards. This green line called a quincunx, 5/12 of a circle, is an aspect of adjustment. It's irritating. It's uncomfortable. And what happens when Mars, the planet of direction, is quincunx to Uranus, things can be erratic. This day has the potential of kind of crazy stuff happening that's not quite within our control. It's like the day when we'll shuffle and touch our computer and spark it, and and something will die. Not that there's death implied in this aspect at all. But the fact is that this is a bit of a sparky energy. On the 25th, Venus catches up with Jupiter, and Venus and Jupiter traditionally, in traditional astrology, are, I mean, it doesn't get any better than Venus and Jupiter hanging out together. I mean, Venus is sweet, Venus is love, Venus is yummy, Venus is nice things, and Jupiter's a magnifying lens. What's the downside of a lot of something good? Nothing, unless you go too far, unless you have too much. Overeat, overdrink, you fill in the blank. But it can be overindulgent. It's a day when we can go out and see something that we really like and buy it and realize that we spent $3,000 that we didn't have on something that we don't really like 3 days later. I mean, that's how that can work. All right, let's move on. We also have in here, back up a day or two, yep. We also have Mercury on the 25th opposite Uranus. That's another bit of a buzz day, and in fact, that's coming into the full moon. One more day, and can we back that up a couple of hours? Do you know where to do that? We're going to bring that down and go to hours, and then just back it up a little bit.
Minutes, hold on.
Good. More. And that's good. So here we have the full moon. I don't have the computer drawing in the line, but that would be a thick red line between the moon and the sun. The full moon, and now again, the full moon now is in Taurus, the sign opposite Scorpio, and this full moon is at, come on, where'd it go? There it is. It's 8:05 a.m. Eastern Time on October 27th, which means here in Bali it'll be 8:05 p.m. on the 27th. Full moon in Taurus. The moon likes being in Taurus. It's grounded there. It's sensual there. It's safe there. It works. But it's opposite the sun. If Taurus is simplicity, Scorpio is complexity. This is a very profound kind of coming of full awareness to the intentions that we created at the new moon 2 weeks prior.
Back to
Yeah.
days.
Huh?
Back to days.
Back to days. We moved through the month and we kind of ended on a bit of a different note, and I feel like by Halloween, this Halloween, where imagination will run wild even more than usual, because on Halloween we have, on the 27th, a couple days before Halloween, we have Venus forming that same quincunx with Uranus that Mars did a few days ago, and this is about kind of being attracted to really weird stuff. So the costumes that we normally make for Halloween are not going to be weird enough for us this year. Those of you who do the costume thing, you're going to go out and kind of get something even a little crazier than normal. But we're going to move this now a couple days more and stop. And on Halloween, are we on the 29th? Good, yeah, fine. We have the sun at 7 degrees of Scorpio, Neptune at 7 degrees of Pisces. Remember, Neptune is dreams, imagination, illusions. It's the veil, it's the clouds, the mists of illusion. The sun in Scorpio is harmonizing with that Neptune, and so the fantasies will be running rampant on the night when the veil is the thinnest. So that kind of takes us through the month, and I think that yeah, thank you very much. And so I think the thing here that's really interesting is that there's some deep and powerful times that we can actually make things happen this month. But unlike September, that was a month of adjusting. You know, we've been in a phase for the last several years where the tectonic plates of civilization are rocking and rattling and rolling. And there's been big changes that will take years yet to integrate. Those changes were largely, from an astrological point of view, done in September. Technically, the aspects were done. But the reverberations are going to be felt for the next several years, big time. In September, we actually had a lot of adjustments that we were making as the rumbling was settling down, but the plates were kind of moving against each other, and there was real irritation and real need to kind of, it was an unsettling month astrologically. October actually has some room to breathe and some new stuff coming in, but it's not so much that the new stuff is coming in big time yet, it's almost like we have a chance to kind of set some intentions that are really strong and really powerful, that are not tied up in management of the crazy crap that's been going on, or dealing with the adjustments and the changes that went on through September with the eclipses and retrogrades, Mercury retrograde. And did I give the date of Mercury turning direct? Yeah, did I actually? Let me just give that. I kind of remember talking about it, and but I don't remember actually saying that it was in that first 10 days when Mercury was moving really slowly. Venus moved into Virgo on October 8th. Mercury turned direct on the 9th. And so what this means is that a lot of October is about making progress on those things which have either been bottlenecked or been held back on, or things that we've had to reconsider. Any word that begins with RE, or many words beginning with RE, are Mercury words. So if we've had to reconsider, review, retake, redevelop, there are others, I'm not getting them right now. But the fact is that as Mercury turns direct and as we move through October, all the planets, the inner planets, are all moving forward again. And so we actually feel like we're making some progress into the new land. So thank you all. Thank you all on YouTube. Make sure you pass it on to your friends. And next month I will be back in Redmond, and some of you will still be here in Bali. Bless you. And thanks.